be his light to a world where wrong seems right? What could be too great a cost for sharing life with one who's lost? Through his love our hearts can feel all the grief they bear. They must hear the words of life only we can share. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. At the end of broken dreams, he's the open door. People need the Lord. People need the Lord. When will we realize that we must give our lives for people need the Lord? So with her, when we started thinking that we need to leave, and we don't have cars. Like at home, their family has a car, but my family and her family, we don't have cars. So we had to depend on people, like on volunteers who can take us somewhere. And they said that we can take you from a certain place, which was on the right bank, but she was on the left bank. And like, transportation doesn't work. Kiev is a huge city. You can't just walk. I mean, the subway worked like 1 metro in an hour. Usually it runs like every 5 minutes. But at that time it was like 1 an hour, and to certain stations. So some stations didn't work, but still they could use it. But in order to get there, they needed someone to take them and to somehow to get through that bridge. And she said like she had her mother there who was only after surgery, and for her it looked hopeless to get out of there somehow. But then they prayed about it, and she remembered one person who was a volunteer and was taking food there and back, and she called that person and said like, by any chance can you help us to go by car to that place? And he said like tomorrow. And he said like, I'm leaving tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning and I have 2 free spots in my car. And at that day, that was the first day when more people could go through that bridge. They were a little more open. So that was like just like God's hand for her to take their family out. And also another, I'll tell you another detail and try to be short with this. Like when we were leaving, we wanted to go to the west, because there it was the safest place. So there is a city called Lvov, and we aimed there. So we asked those volunteers to take us there, and they said yes. But then they said we can leave not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. But when that is going on, you want to leave as soon as possible. So they told us like, you can call that number, and there are some other people, they may take you tomorrow. So we called there, and we said that there are 5 of us, and they said okay, we will take you there. And when we came to the place where they were supposed to pick us up, it turned out that they are not going to Lvov. They're going only to a place which is only 2 hours away from Kiev, but their main purpose was to take people out of the place where it's dangerous to a safer place, and then they said we would help you there. So they took us there, and they gave us a place to stay at the orphanage overnight. And it worked actually really well, because since then it was in stages. Since then we got like another bus that took us to another place, and then in that city a pastor that we never met. We just got his phone number, we called him, and we asked if they have some place at the church or somewhere for us to stay with kids, and it was an older lady, and he gave us the second floor at his own house, and he told us you can stay there as long as you want. So we stayed there for 3 or 4 days, and then he found a bus to take us directly to the place where we needed to go. And then later we found out that if we took the train or something, the trains were helping people to get out of the city too, but they were like so crowded that people were standing for 11 hours, and they couldn't move even to go to the bathroom. There was no place. They were just jammed with kids, with older people, and that way we saw that God prepared the way, even though we thought that we were going to one place, but it turned out that was a mistake. But it was much better that way. So God already prepared a way for us personally, and took care of us that way, which was much easier for her mom to go in stages and not like the whole way directly. And like in our church, we'll go to different churches. In our church, they also have a basement, and many people were coming there, like those who are not believers. And some of them came to God. Some of them were just like looking for some comfort, for some help, and maybe did not repent sincerely, but very many people did, because they were in the environment where other Christians took care of them, and they saw that difference with the people of the world and people of the church. So churches did grow tremendously these days. Hopefully people are going to stay in churches when the war is over, but for now, like every church has many new people.
So you were in Uzhgorod for about 2 months, and then when things got better in Kiev, you went back to Kiev for a while, but there were still occasional missiles and sirens going off. So what do people do when those sirens go off?
Well, when we just came back to Kiev, it was better there, but then it started again. Well, the sirens were off all the time, but we did not really pay attention to them first, because nothing was going on for a while. Like for a couple months, it was quieter in Kiev. But then they started again. So most people, well, not most, in the beginning, most people were just going to bomb shelters when they were off, even like during the night. But it's hard when you get up during the night and you hear this siren and you don't know whether they're gonna hit here or some other place, and you have kids and you have to wake them up, to dress them and to take them to the bomb shelter. It's hard. So some people started ignoring it and just staying at home and praying and just saying that I don't know what's gonna happen, but whatever God gives me, that's the way it's going to be, and not to go there. But they started hitting the power stations then, and we did not have electricity for a couple months, for maybe 3 months. We did not have electricity almost all the time. They gave it for a couple hours a day. And for people like Alona, she lives on the 16th floor, and elevators didn't work. So her mom, after the surgery, if she needed to go outside somewhere, like even going to the bomb shelter, she had to walk 16 floors down and then 16 floors up, and during the night, like the top floors, that's the most dangerous place. So it's dangerous to stay there, because when the missiles hit, they usually hit top floors. So for them, they had to do it anyways. And if you need to bring water or something, you still had to do that. So most people started, ignoring these bomb shelters and just staying at home. But not all of them. Even 3 days ago, our friend and her husband and her son, they went to the bomb shelter because they heard those explosions. But at the same time, my husband was sleeping, and her husband was sleeping too, and they said they even didn't hear them. So, and there were a couple in Kiev again just a few days ago.
I have a question. Most everybody then in Kiev is living in an apartment. We just can't even fathom that in the United States, that everybody lives in an apartment, because we're so used to having homes of our own and don't realize what a blessing that is. It doesn't matter, how, basic your home may be. It's such a gift that God allows that. And then I was wondering, when you were in the shelter, you have no way to prepare the food. You don't have sinks and ovens and conveniences like that. How did you survive even though you got food? Was it prepared, or how did that work?
For us, we got lucky because we were in a school place, and there was a kitchen, like a separate building, which was like not in the basement, but at the periods when it was quiet, people were able to go upstairs and prepare it in the kitchen. And there even was a shower in a separate place. So for us, it was a luxurious, bomb shelter. But for them, I'll let her answer, because I don't know how they cooked it there.
По-русски лучше. То есть, когда началась война, то мы начали искать, когда мы проснулись под взрывы.
When we woke up and when we heard those explosions, we started looking for a bomb shelter.
И у нас была схема укрытия.
And we just had a chart, like a map, where there are closest ones.
И пытались найти убежище.
And we were trying to find a shelter for
Но
us.
это только были убежища, они там обозначены как убежища в высокоэтажных домах.
And only in high store buildings, they had these shelters in the basements.
Но это не укрытие, это просто обычный подвал.
But they were not like real bomb shelters, but mainly like basements.
Там, где трубы с горячей водой.
Were just like pipes with hot water around.
И я не знаю, это так Бог дал, я просто молилась, Господи, направь.
And I was just praying at that time, like, God direct us where to go.
И мы просто сидели на улице с вещами, с документами.
And we were sitting outside with our documents in our hands.
И некоторые люди знали, что там есть такое правительственное небольшое учреждение.
And some people knew that there is a little governmental place, like institution.
И под ним есть, как профессиональное убежище.
And there is like a real professional bomb shelter under that building.
Которое строилось давно еще,
that was built a long time ago.
Даже для ядерных атак. То есть,
and it's good even for nuclear attacks.
Но там очень много пыли.
But it was very dusty.
Одно преимущество — туалет.
And the only advantage that there was a bathroom.
И такие, многоэтажные полки.
And there were like boards with like many layers that were able to serve as beds.
Деревянные такие полочки,
like
где можно сесть.
Made of wood that you could sit on them.
И каким-то удивительным образом люди самоорганизовались.
And people just, organized themselves without any like help.
И у нас была окраина города, у нас вообще окраина города.
And we live at the edge of the city.
Ближе всего к русской границе, получается, к Чернигову.
Like the closest to the border with Russia.
И нам просто не завозили продукты, потому что было очень громко. Каждый день были взрывы, каждый час.
And the food, they even did not bring it to that area because it was very loud there. Every hour there were explosions.
Но люди, которые там работали, они выходили, я не знаю, как кассиры работали под постоянными взрывами.
But people who worked there, like in the stores, people like cashiers, they were going to work even though like it was going on just near them.
И у нас не было никакой еды, мы не были готовы к этому.
We didn't have any food, we were not ready for that.
И когда мы пришли в магазин, постояли 2 часа на улице под взрывами.
When we went to the store, we had to stand like in line for 2 hours under these explosions.
И вошли внутрь,
And then we came inside of the store.
но там уже почти было пусто.
It was empty. There was almost nothing in the store.
И мы шутили, я у женщины спросила, а что покупают на случай войны?
And I just like made a joke and asked a woman, what do people buy in case of the war?
И мы с ней решили купить апельсины.
And we decided to buy oranges.
Первые дни я вообще не могла есть.
So first day we basically didn't eat.
Только кофе дома с утра.
Only when we were able to jump in our apartment for a couple minutes, I had coffee
И
there
апельсины.
and oranges in the evening.
И некоторые люди, то есть, тоже не могли есть и похудели там на 8
And
килограмм.
most people just were not able to eat because of the stress, and like some people lost like 8 kilograms for several days.
И после этого начали происходить чудеса.
But then miracles started happening.
Какой-то ресторан, я не знаю, откуда они о нас узнали.
One restaurant, I don't know how they found out about this shelter.
Они приготовили нам на всех людей.
They cooked food for all people.
Это суп в один день.
That one day it was soup.
Тоже никто не знает, откуда нас узнали. Привезли, начали привозить рыбу.
Nobody knows how they found out about us, but they started bringing fish,
Даже ананасы.
even pineapples,
Это было для детей.
but
по
mainly
большей
for
степени.
children.
И потом люди организовались, и там подключили электроплиту.
And then people just like got organized, and someone brought electrical stove
И что у кого было дома.
and started bringing food, whatever who had at home,
И начали готовить.
and they started cooking there on that electrical stove.
When the children, when they had food for the children, then all the adults just didn't eat, and everybody just did that. I mean, is that how it worked? That they had food for kids, and they just let the kids eat? Is that?
Well, yeah, kids are always priorities.
Yeah. That's something. We just, in America, we just can't imagine that.
Well, we couldn't either until then.
Does it bring comfort when you start out and you had a Christian before all this took place, was it more of a comfort then, now? I mean, with what's going on, do you feel supportive of one another as a Christian because you have something in common versus the people who come in fear because, they're not aware or experiencing God's grace and love, but those of us who have and are, does it bring comfort to
Yes, we were amazed with what like other Christians did to each other, even though they didn't know each other. I mean, when you get to some kind of a church during all of that, they would feed you, they would give you anything you need, they would help you with the ways that you can't imagine, and that actually was going on everywhere. Everyone was helping each other the way they could.
Did you know people personally that were killed in the war?
Yes, unfortunately, we lost 4 of our friends. One, our close dear friend, was killed in the first days of war. He was in the basement with his family, with his wife and 3 kids. And it was just like a week later maybe, and he was going out of the basement. He just wanted to see what is going on. It was close to Kiev. He lived in a little town like 20 minutes away from Kiev. And he just went out to see what was going on, and he was shot. That's one friend, and then 3 more died in the war fighting. That's people that we knew that were our close friends.
So how long do you plan to stay in the U.S.?
Until 5th of July. We already have tickets to go back. Well, Alona and her mom, they are staying because she doesn't have a husband there. But so until war is not over, so there is no point for her to go back right now. But for us, we've been living without our husbands for 6 months now. And it's difficult, so we decided that no matter what, we're going back.
So you brought the children, so you and the children came, so your husbands are still there?
Yes.
Okay.
So if and when this war is over, and you get to go back, what are you gonna go back to? I mean, we see so much destruction. I mean, it's gonna take, I mean, it seems like forever to recover, but what will you be going back to?
Well, fortunately, Kiev was not damaged that much. There were several buildings that were destroyed, and in the beginning, and some of it already restored. And not our apartment is still existing, and the building is still okay. Well, you never know if it's gonna be like that on, because they still have these bombings. But for now, we have a place to live, and they do too.
Now, at least one occasion, the children saw missiles
Yes.
in the sky.
Well, I myself saw it 3 times, just flying over our heads. And kids, once they were out of the basement in the school, and they were just playing outside for a while while we didn't have this alert on. And then, even not having the alert on, there was a missile just flying over our heads, and like in 15 seconds after that, we heard an explosion. They hit the TV tower at that time, and 9 people who were just walking by died at that moment. But we were told that when you see the missile over your head, it's not dangerous for you. If it's dangerous for you, you will not see it.
Did you know each other earlier?
Yes.
Even though she was on the other side of the...
Yeah, we were friends for a long time by then.
So Luda is a school teacher. She was teaching 1st grade. So what happened with the school once this all started?
Мы перешли на онлайн-обучение.
Well, at first we switched to online studying.
И я продолжала работать с подвала,
And I
выходить на связь
kept
онлайн.
working even from the basement. I was like teaching online there.
Искала уголок, где уединиться,
I was
одевала наушники и выходила на урок.
Looking for a corner where I could stay in, where I could put my headphones on, and then I was teaching there.
И каждый раз, когда вот мы уже в сентябре вышли работать в школу, и каждый раз, когда звучит сирена, мы с детьми берем тревожные рюкзачки и спускаемся в
And
подвал
then
на урок.
in September we actually went back to school with the kids, but every time when the siren is on, we take kids. Everyone has like this little bag with some basics, like there's a flashlight, water, and some cookies. And we'd go to the basement, and we keep having classes in the basement.
И я благодарна Богу, что Он учил меня через это время быть примером для детей, примером человека веры.
And I'm thankful to God that He taught me during that time to be an example for kids, to be an example of faith.
Потому что они маленьким по 6 лет, и они смотрят на мои реакции, на мое поведение.
My kids, they're 6 years old, and they look at my behavior, at my reactions.
То есть слава Богу за то, что Он каждый день был с нами.
So praise God that He was with us every day there.
I have a question. You said that you were going without power for lengthy amounts of time. Did you get water, like clean water available for you? I mean, did you have plumbing?
Well, in some apartments, like in my apartment, my water from the sink, from the faucet, it does not depend on electricity. So we had like water for like doing the dishes, but for drinking water we had to buy it at the store. The stores at first they did not work, but then they bought generators and they started working on generators. So like big stores they kept working, but with her, like they live on the 16th floor, so their pump, or I don't know if it's connected with the electricity or not, but when the electricity went off, the pumps didn't work, so they didn't have water, and also they have an electrical stove, so it didn't work either. For us, we have gas stove, so we still could cook. We just could not use anything what connected with electricity. And for refrigerators, that was a disaster for refrigerators. Like those 2 hours that they gave the power on, it wasn't enough for the refrigerators to get cold. So.
Was there still work available? People able to, do some sort of job that wasn't being affected?
Some people lost their jobs because it was not relevant during the war, but some people still were able to work, like those like doctors or those people who go to like factories, like produce bread and stuff like that. So, and people who work at the stores and even restaurants worked. Tried to work, like cafes and. Well, at first, like first couple months, no, but then people started just adjusting to life like that.
How did COVID affect your situation there? It almost would seem like to me that when COVID came along, it was like, you think COVID's bad? Living in this condition with bombs that are killing people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The first day of war, everybody forgot about COVID. I remember this day when I was standing for 2 hours in the line that was around the store 3 times, and then I came, and before that we were forced to wear masks every time you come in the store. And then at that day I came to the store and there was like a guard standing there letting a certain amount of people get in, and nobody asked about the mask. And I asked him, like, masks are not required anymore, and he said COVID doesn't exist anymore, come in. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's a wonderful illustration of just how we can withstand a lot, and in comparison to what everyone else is having to go through, it just is a reminder to us that. What is a big thing, and you can focus on it here, because here it was all that was happening. That's all everybody cared about was COVID. But when it came to your situation, it should make us all very, very thankful, but also very, very aware of how we can be involved in the solution as Christians. So, I just read from Ezekiel 4:10, I think it is, and it says, despise not the small things. And I think what you've described is a lot of small things. A Christian who reaches out to someone else, a Christian who reaches out to a non-Christian who just is looking for safety and for love, and they give it anyway. I don't think anybody ever stopped anybody and said, I'm not gonna act like Christ to you and be kind to you if you're not a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we all need to remember that you learn how important small things are. We tend to forget it because we are surrounded with so much security and safety and wealth. We forget about the little things that you guys had to focus on. And it made a lot of things like COVID seem very small, but the little things got very big. And I think that's a good reminder to us about what Christ would have us to do. Focus on the little things, faith and love to other people. Anyone else have a question?
Were you able to keep the focus of the children when you were trying to teach?
Дети по-прежнему могли быть сфокусированы, когда ты учила.
Да, мы привыкли к этому.
Yeah, we just got used to the situation.
sad to have to do that.
In fact, some people had their classes like in subways. We even have a picture. I once sent it to Steve that they brought desks and people there, just like metro. These cars are standing, in the sides, and they're just on the platform at those desks and have classes there when bombing is going on above them.
So what's your message to the folks who come to you in fear and uncertainty? Because, we've all, as when we first became a Christian, we didn't go through the wars, but we all had to depend on God. And because of our longevity in life now, I got to say, I've gotten spoiled. When I was a young Christian, I felt God's presence and I knew His provisions were real, and I took it for granted. Now I'm older and haven't had hardships, and we always go through it. But what's your message to the folks who come off the streets and they are in fear and uncertainty, and how are they responding to the gospel in a way that it really works and they can see God's evidence?
Well, when the war just started, I heard one phrase from one preacher myself that really encouraged me, and that's something that I tell others now. That when one of the first of our friends died, it was so hurtful. I mean, it was painful, because that was a person who was very close to us. He was a bright person, a minister. And then I heard from one preacher a phrase that God knew every death that is going to happen. God knew every step that is going to be taken. And if He did not stop it, there was a reason for that. And here we may never know what the reason was, but there was, and God knew it. So that's something that I take as a comfort for myself and tell others, that God knows everything is going on. And even if I don't understand it, there's still a reason for that.
So are small arms allowed in Ukraine? Like, handguns, rifles, are they allowed for you guys to use?
Well, right now, yes. It wasn't like that before. But when the war started, they were given these rifles, and even you just bring your passport. They take a copy of your passport and give you the rifle.
Okay, all right. I just wondered if they don't have, y'all don't have small arms, okay, and you have a food crisis. To me, I'm gonna grab my gun, I'm gonna go out and hunt. I'm gonna find some food to bring home for my family. And if you guys get that opportunity to be able to do that,
No.
why not?
No, they were not. Well, people didn't have guns before, and when they were given these gun machines, it was given for the war. Because in the beginning, what Russia did, they brought lots of people inside the country before the war started, and they were all dressed not like soldiers. Yeah, they were dressed like regular people, and they started making different messes there. I don't know. They started attacking people, and they were shooting families there in the cars during the night and so on. So in order to fight with those groups, they were given those weapons, but it's not for hunting.
Well, they're living in a city like Kiev. You're not going to have game.
Well,
that you can
yeah, that part I understand. That, you're in the city, and the city has nothing to provide for you now.
Yeah.
So now what do you do? I'm not going to go down the basement and hide. That's not me. I'm going to go out, and I'm going to find what is needed to bring back to my family. Regardless if the government says I can or I can't do it, I'm going to go do it because I want to keep my family alive. But I'm just wondering if you guys had the availability of having small arms like that, would that help the cause?
Well, no, but in the first days of wars, the stores, people told us that they just opened their doors, some where it was really bad, where it was occupied, they just opened their doors and said, you come in and take anything you want. But that's only for first few days while there is something to take. And then people were just depending on help from others. But there are really, like in Kiev, it wasn't as bad. But in some other cities where it's like everything is destroyed and it's the places are occupied, like people just were getting everything they could from their freezers, and they were even going outside and cooked it on the fire there and shared it with everybody around. And then when they were out of food, they had to depend on volunteers who were bringing food in cars and trucks there from other places.
I think the thing that we're seeing here is that as opposed to self-survival and people thinking that way, that the love of Christ and the extreme situation, I mean, you didn't have to go out and fight for your food. Everybody was sharing what they had. It just completely changed the mentality of everybody. Because, and you have to recognize that the Lord did that He took hold of that situation. Now, if it was a situation where God could not prevail and He didn't have a foothold and there weren't missionary efforts going on and Christians from around the world sending to them, if it was just a situation where we don't have food, but we don't have Jesus and we don't have God, then it's every man for himself. But this, with the situation you're describing, when a store wouldn't open up its doors and say, take what you need if you need something. We'd have a riot and they'd steal the food and then they'd burn it down. But that's the difference between people that are guided by God and being used by God versus people like in the United States where we think we don't need God and we're just living for ourselves. And I think that anyone with a heart for Christ would be changed too at that point. I think that would have such a tremendous impact on people to realize, my needs are going to be supplied along with everybody else to the degree that God has planned. And it will work. And faith grows. So.
Yes, and surprisingly, those days, even non-Christians, when they went to those stores to get what they needed, they did not get more than they needed. They thought of others. Well, there were exceptions, but mainly...
There were probably some Christians that were exceptions too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is... and I did wonder, how in a situation like that you would learn to trust not only people of faith, but that when it comes down to it, God has placed something in mankind that is His image. It's marred, it's ignored, but it's in there. And I think there are those times when that kicks in spite of the situation. And then when it's God's people, it makes all the difference in the world. But, I think of the story about the family that took in the German soldiers during World War II. And actually they took in some American soldiers first. And then later on some German soldiers came and they took them in and they had Christmas dinner. And the mama of the place was there. The dad was in town and was gone. And she basically said, look, when you're here, we're not going to fight. And we're going to get along. And it's a story about something that changed. One of them was injured. The American was injured. And there was a German soldier who had some medical training. And they had to share food. And the one that was injured needed a little more nutrition. And so he got that. And then as it turned out, and then they, went back outside when they were all recovered and ready to go and went their separate ways. But as they were going, I think it was the the American said, well, we're going to go this way. And the German soldier said, no, don't go that way because there are armaments there. Go this way. And I thought, you know, if that's what it takes. You know, if it took an invasion of America to turn people to Jesus Christ, it would be worth it. It took the Babylonian captivity and several other instances where God had to use extreme adversity and hardship for his people to call them back to faith. So, you know, I appreciate this time when you're doing that for us, but we don't have the bombs going off here now. But they went off for you to tell us so we can learn. So, thank you for that.
Are you able to communicate with your husbands? So that your children get to talk to them, and that must be difficult.
Are they back, they're back in their homeland, and I assume they're fighting, or?
Well, for now, they're just staying in the apartments there. They were not drafted.
Yeah. So how does the draft work there?
Well, first, everyone who is somehow connected with military, like they draft them first, and then the rest if they need them later. So they say that they have
a certain age that they go for?
Yeah, from 18 to 65.
Pretty open.
And they're probably looking for, depending on positions that are needed, they may need someone who has an engineering background.
Yes.
They may just need young people that can act as troops. So depending on what they need, just like our military would do.
Yeah, yeah.
So are your husbands able to work at jobs?
Well, they both had online jobs, so they still do
So
them.
they're still able
Okay.
to...
Even
Yes,
though,
internet.
if there is electricity and internet and so on, but there is still it affected the level of income and everything, but they still are able to do what they did.
All right, well, thank you, ladies, for sharing.
Thank you very much.